Hello, my name is Jambareeqi, and joining me for an interview is voice actress Erin Fitzgerald. Thank you for joining me, Erin.
Hello.
Now, first of all, I'd like to know, what are you currently up to? What project are you committed to right now?
The project I'm committed to right now is a really, really juicy one that I'm not allowed to talk about. I'm under strict NDA and I'm very excited about it. I'm hoping they announce it in June. It may not come out until San Diego Comic-Con in July, but I'm very, very excited.
Is there anything at all you can talk about that you're working on
I
right
can
now?
say that it's an animated series.
What was the last thing you worked on then?
I currently work on Wild Grinders, which is a animated series on Nicktoons, and we've just begun recording second season of that. And I really enjoy that because I get to work with talent like Cam Clark and Yuri Lowenthal and Kel Mitchell. He's a big star in the U.S. From Nickelodeon days, but he's a very funny comedian. And I really enjoy that job. And of course, Monster High. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm at six characters now. Oh, and you can hear the lorry going down my street at holidays. It's very loud. I have to always, when I record from home, wait for these big trucks to go by. They're
must
my favorite.
must,
And
must be inconvenient.
right. The last month I have also worked on some very juicy video games that I'm not allowed to talk about. There's some juicy games going to be coming out soon, but again, I can't talk about it until they announce the casts. I think I'm actually more excited about the video game stuff that's going to be coming out than I am about even this new series. That's going to be good. I have a couple of new anime, but I don't know if they're going to be popular or not. So we'll wait and see. I can't talk about those yet either. So it's like the best interview ever because you're right in between announcements. So until there are new juicy announcements, I can't talk about it. But I have so much in the can waiting to come out. I'm so excited for them. But the stuff that I have done, that's growing in popularity, I'm really impressed about. Like the Skullgirls video game that seems to be taking over the world one player at a time. That's been a real exciting community to be involved in. I've really enjoyed it.
It shouldn't be too much of a problem, not being able to talk about new things, so we'll talk about old things instead.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea. I'm so sorry.
It's
For
totally,
anyone who wants to keep up with that kind of thing, I do update my website as the announcements come out, or on Twitter or Facebook. I do post the announcements there.
Do you feel really excited when you do get to announce something?
Oh my, are you kidding me? Of course. Unless it's something I've completely forgotten about, which does occur. Sometimes I have to check into I love that Wikipedia has a page on me because that's the most accurate for my credits. So I'll go there and be like, "Oh, right. I forgot I worked on that." And it'll all of a sudden be there. IMDb misses half of my credits. So I've found that that is the most horrible source for voice actors. It seems IMDb doesn't take voice acting as seriously as live action, so they don't list all of our credits appropriately. Or maybe it's just harder to list them because anything animated or video games has different rules. Like we don't follow the same production rules as live action.
IMDb is a bit awkward, I think, because like sometimes I do edit pages on there and they'll take
Right.
nights or weeks.
Well, they require episode names, which in animation change all the time. Episode numbers, which also changes in animation. The titles of projects change. Like it's always very. I can't. There's so many projects I've tried to add, but I can't. I just don't even bother anymore. I don't even try to add anything. It's not up to date at all. But Wikipedia is like the day it comes out, boom, there it is.
So let's go back a bit. Let's go all the way back. When did you first take an interest in acting, in performance?
I think I came in to this world with that goal. I remember as early as 3 years old memorizing a movie that I'd seen and acting it all out at three and going to the neighbor's house, the little old lady who lived next door named Mrs. Proudfoot. And I used to perform for her, and she would just sit there all afternoon while I performed. We hung out. She was my friend. Yeah, I didn't even know I was acting. I was just, that's all I could do. And she had really good blocks, and she'd let me play with her blocks too, and would always have tea and cookies. I loved her. She was great.
So, how did your parents feel about your interest in performance? Did they encourage it?
They didn't, I mean, it's not, I'm from the generation where that was not even considered a profession. So I was just a dramatic child who liked to do a lot of dramatic and theater stuff and, perform in the school plays and make shows at home. It just seemed like normal child behavior to them. I don't think they read anything into it because that nobody at that time in Canada, that just wasn't, there wasn't a world of entertainment. You know what I mean? Not in the
Hmm.
same sense. Like if you lived in Hollywood maybe or New York maybe, but in the small towns in Canada, you're not thinking that your child is preparing to become an actor. No. You're just thinking your kid is being a kid playing imaginary games.
So, did you have to go out of your way to learn acting then, and to,
I did,
yeah.
yeah. In spite of that, yeah, I did. I had to force my mom to sign me up for drama classes and look for stuff. And my mom did her best in the small cities that we lived in. There wasn't a lot to offer. It was hard for her. Like there weren't classes and stuff like that. And sometimes I'd end up in grown up classes, and I was always pushing for it. I always wanted, I always wanted to be in an. I remember in high school, I wish I was really jealous of the people that I knew that went to the performing arts school, and I was always angry that I wasn't put into a performing arts school. And my parents were like, "No, you're not going into. Just go to high school, get a degree. I mean, a high school diploma. Like okay." So I worked with what I had. It wasn't something that my parents ever took seriously at all. Not at all. Even when I was determined at the age of 14 that this was going to be my career path, they just, uh-huh, sure it is. We'll see, kid.
So, how do they feel about it now that you've embraced it as a career?
Well, they were a little disgruntled when I went to university for theater because they wanted me to become a nurse, but they really just as long as I got a degree, they were like, "Fine, you can go and do it, get a degree." Then I got a degree, then I moved to Vancouver to work professionally, which they didn't even when I started working professionally as an actor and getting paid, they didn't take me seriously. I had some decent roles on some Canadian TV shows and I got bit parts there and lots of theater work that was paying and stuff. But they didn't take that seriously until I got like one line. I had one or two lines on the X Files, and it was my one or two like tiny bit part. And that's when they were like, "Our daughter is a professional actress." Like, really? Two lines on the X Files, and that's what made me a professional actress? All the years of work I've done prior to this, nothing? Wow. And then I got after I moved away from television and film and theater and got into voiceover. And my first voiceover job was at Ed and Eddy. But of course, even though it was all Canadian made, it never played in Canada. Canada doesn't really seem to support Canadian made stuff in some instances. So it was huge in America, and nobody heard about it in Canada. So it wasn't until my dad is in the Canadian Navy, and he got posted to Norfolk, Virginia, and my mom was working in Norfolk, Virginia as a nurse, and they started hearing about Ed and Eddy all the time, and that's when they were like, "Wait a minute, my daughter's on that show." That's when I got taken seriously.
So, were there any like actors, actresses, or voice actors that really like inspired you to start performing?
Um, well, yeah. I mean, I was always into comedians. Any female comedian really got my juices going. Like I loved Carol Burnett and Tracy Ullman, um, Bernadette Peters, Madeline Kahn, Catherine O'Hara. I adore Catherine O'Hara. She is amazing.
Hmm.
Those kind of actresses all the time. Of course, I loved June Foray, but I didn't know who she was. I just know that the women voices in Looney Tunes were awesome. I loved the characters. I had no idea who the voice actors behind the characters were. Um, I really enjoyed that. But when I started working in voiceover and started paying attention to voice actors, the voice actors that inspired me were like one of my favorites is Candy Milo. I think she's hilarious. Her character work is hilarious. I think I go for people that make me laugh, and she just has this comic timing that just fits my sense of humor perfectly. I really enjoy her. And Kathleen Barr, who I worked with on Ed and Eddy, always had me cracking up. I really admire Kathleen Barr and her incredible range of voice and talent. Really, really quite blessed. And now I'm working with these ridiculously talented women all the time on Monster High, and it's just I'm in awe when I sit in the room and I watch these women work, and it's so much harder for women in voiceover because there's not as many roles. Even though we get to play the young boys, they just don't really write a lot of roles for women. So there's a huge talent pool of incredibly talented women that, you know, we all have our small groups of people who know who we are, but it's shocking to me that more people don't know the names that I work with all the time. It seems like they should all be huge celebrities based on what they're able to do.
It is a shame. It really does disappoint me as well. I mean, like, it's a huge achievement for anyone to be able to perform behind a microphone as if they've got a mask in front of them.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like the women I work with on Monster High, Kate Higgins, Cindy Robinson, Sally Safiati, Debbie Derryberry, like these women are America Young too. They're just drop dead phenomenal. You just they make their living working, you know, doing this for a living. So they're booking all the time. So anybody who can make their living at it and live in LA, which is an expensive city, that says a lot for their talent. I get it. I mean, I think the people who are attracted to voiceover don't mind the anonymity because, of course, most of us are like, I don't care if anybody knows who I am as long as I'm working and I'm getting my bills paid and I can do what it is that I love to do. I don't think any of the women that I know personally are interested in becoming celebrities or want fame or any of that nonsense, because to them to most of us it's kind of nonsensical because it doesn't make sense. We want our characters to be popular and the shows we're on to be popular, but it's not important whether we're popular personally. That we just want the people who hire us to know who we are and know what we do so that we can continue to get hired. That's about it.
Well, how do you feel about your popularity then in the animation community and in all community really? Like, how do you feel about your fame?
Well, I don't consider myself famous at all. I consider my characters famous. And then there's always just those few people that take that extra time to find out more about who's behind the character, and I just think that those are the people that I end up building friendships with, and so they don't even consider them fans at a certain point when I've had conversations, because I mean I don't have like I have 2,000 people following me on Twitter, but those are like 2,000 friends. You know what I mean? I'm not into the tens of thousands of human beings following, you know, so I don't get it to that degree, so I don't have to feel that yet. Maybe that would happen, you know, after years more experience, or if I book something that ends up being much bigger than anything I've ever done, and it became that. But I don't know. I guess I'll have to wait and see. Right now, I still feel pretty normal, and nobody recognizes me when I go out anywhere. Even when I'm at conventions and people call me out, you know, it's very rare that I feel, you know, fame. I don't feel famous. I remember one of the experiences I had that was just touched my heart was one young woman at a convention. She didn't know who I was to look at me, you know, because I'm not famous. But when she found out that I played one of her favorite voices, which was Chie on the Persona 4 series, she started trembling and crying. And I was so excited for her because I remember feeling that way about certain characters growing up, certain cartoon characters, and even some performers, like some comedians that I had a passion for, and when I got to meet them in person, I just melted down, and it was so wild to be on the other side of that. I just remember hugging her and just thinking, this is amazing. It felt really cool. That felt really cool to know that someone loved my character that much was so cool.
Talking of your fan base, what's your relationship like with them?
I'm on my Facebook fan page and Twitter all the time. I'm always interacting with the people who take the time to interact with me because, if somebody's taking that time, I really have a loyalty to the people that are fans of my work, and that feels more appropriate. The people who are fans of my work, because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have gotten my green card in America. Because when I was applying for my green card, I had to prove that I was famous. So this is where the definition of fame became interesting, because I didn't feel famous at all. But that was when I realized, oh, my characters are famous. So I had to reach out to the fan base of those characters and have them write in letters. I needed fan letters because nobody really wrote me fan letters. But so I had to actually ask for, can you write me fan letters and mention the shows that you like that I voice, so that the government knows that these characters are famous, which, technically makes me famous. So they really helped me out. So I feel like a loyalty to my fan base, for sure.
Well, I think that voice actors are starting to get a bit more recognition since the marketing of performers that are in films. Like, you never actually saw voice actors build on posters for animation until, like, Shrek. And it's like, that was a big thing.
Yeah. It is, and it's still a big thing. And I think social media is changing that universe too, because, when you go to like Grey Delisle, Tara Strong, Candy Milo, and all there's tons of male ones too, but I'm going to stick to the girls because I support the female community of voice acting. And, and they've got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. That lets you know that, the regular voice actors are starting to get higher in profile as well, which is really cool. And I think it would be amazing if we got to the place where, Jennifer Hale's name being on a project created a huge audience base. I think that would be spectacular, when we get to that point. I think that's a possibility in the future, because that would be fun. That would be something for especially aspiring voice actors to be like, oh, look, this is going somewhere. It's not just, anonymity forever. Because, it's nice to be recognized when you do a good job. However, I must say, 90% of my work is stuff that no one ever sees. I do a lot of, we supplement the popular video games and popular cartoon shows with video games that never go anywhere, narration jobs, commercial jobs, educational development software. There's all sorts of other types of voiceover work that most of us do to pay our bills in order to keep surviving. And that's another strange thing, is that you can be really, really, really well known and still dead broke. So I would take the work over being well known any day.
So, talking about voice acting, now with voice acting, what do you think is the key to a performance?
Your imagination. I really believe, and that's why I'm a big advocate of studying theater. I think the work, when you're studying theater and you're doing theater acting, you are required to use your imagination in a way that you don't have to use for live action acting. Live action acting, everything is right in front of you, and you just kind of, you put yourself in that all you have to do in live action is pretend that what's around you is real. That's it. Where in theater and voiceover, you have to make up an entire universe in your head, and if you aren't able to do that convincingly, then your performance isn't going to be believable, and people aren't going to feel anything after your performance. And it's about finding out who you are in these different characters, right? It's acting. It's the core of acting. So I think any form of acting, studying and acting character work specifically, like for myself, obviously I studied a lot of comedic character actresses because I loved what they were able to do and how many boundaries they could break outside of, what they looked like. I really appreciated that growing up. But I was also blessed to grow up in a time where there was Billy Crystal and Robin Williams and Whoopi Goldberg and Carol Burnett and all of these amazing, comedic character actors. And that was kind of honored on television. They had specials on TV all the time. I was really lucky that's what I got to witness in the media, because I think it really heavily influenced my own nature. But nowadays, I think you're gonna anybody studying voice acting, you're gonna have to look for it yourself. You're gonna have to find it for yourself. You're gonna have to find those. I'm sure I know SNL still continues on, and they've got some good stuff sometimes and some great talent on occasion, but it's been hit and miss, and you can't depend on one show to find talent. So I like to go to, going to sketch comedy shows in local theaters like Second City or Groundlings or that type of a thing. Because they do great. Groundlings is great for the character work. They really focus on, again, creating characters, and I really like anything that's character puppetry and puppets. That's also a good area to explore for creating characters, because you're creating an entire world of a person that you're bringing to life instantly in a moment.
Since you look up to comedy acting, what do you think that actors can benefit from comedy improv?
Oh, okay. So what I really like about the improvisation is it forces you to commit in the moment to whatever choice. You have to commit to it. For it to work in the scene, you have to believe it, you have to commit to it, and you have to imagine it. Because everything is make-believe. You're bringing it up out of your imagination on the spot, instantly. These are things you use behind a microphone. You don't get the script beforehand. You instantly have to become a character. You instantly have to create the entire universe based on the few little descriptions that the director or writer or producer are giving you, and you have to flesh it all out in that moment. You are improvising as a voice actor every single day because you don't get the entire story, and you have to try, and you get nudges from, like you do in improv, you get suggestions from the audience on how to shape it, build it, form it. It's the same. It's pretty much the same with the director and the producers, in a lot of cases. For example, recording Wild Grinders yesterday, we got they always give us extra characters in the episodes, and there were two silly boy characters in this one episode, and me and Yuri got to play the boys. And immediately, because Yuri is a genius performer, improv actor, he can do any form of acting, and immediately he and I have very good work chemistry, where our voices complement each other and our acting styles complement each other. So as soon as we started, it's almost like it's like we've been doing this forever. It's almost like we've been performing theater together for a long time. We just know where the other person's going to go intuitively, and we created these ridiculous pair of brothers, and we even improv'd extra lines just for our own entertainment in the booth. But the producer heard us do the improv stuff, and he was like, no, let's put that in. Let's do that for the rest of the entire episode. So then we just added all of that within the universe of what was already created by the writers, and we were able to make it, in our opinion, even funnier and it was funny to begin with, but we took it to an even funnier place, and that was just that creative freedom that we were able to have in that particular job. And I watch in the same job, Kel Mitchell also does that. He'll take what's on the page, and because that job is very flexible and they're not they really encourage the actors that have these talents to go with it. Kel can improv the most brilliant things that ends up in an episode. It's fantastic. Not all shows do that or let you do, like Ed, and Eddy, you had no wiggle room. Everything was scripted. Danny had it storyboarded before we even got into the room to record. Everything was very, very specific. Even Rolf's insane lines, which seemed like they were improv because Peter Kalamis is a comic genius, he had to deliver everything that was written on the page. So it's interesting. I think improv helps you become a better committer. You commit. You're not going to half-ass anything. You're gonna be there 1,000%, and you're gonna listen to the other actors if you get to be in the room with them. Or if not, you listen to the director, the producers, and the writers on a different level, because you've got to ride that wave of information to inspiration.
So how do you feel about sharing a booth with another voice actor? Do you think it enhances your performance?
I'm not a fan of being isolated and by myself, unless I'm at home. That's when I want to be alone. But when I'm at work, I want I feed off of the brilliance of the people around me, and there's so much brilliance. I will come up with stuff that I would have never thought of because of the way someone else will read a line, and I get so heartbroken when shows are get tight on budget or for whatever reason stop bringing actors in together and they just start recording us one at a time. I really think the quality of a show plummets when they aren't able to do that. And that's why I think anime artists and video game artists have it the hardest, because they they don't get to be in the room with everybody else. So you don't know the level of performance that the others are doing, so you can't match them. You really have to depend on the director. You have to depend that the director has everybody's voice in their head, and that your voice is going to be mosaicked in perfectly to match their voices. A bad director doesn't do that. A bad director, and then you get a game or a show where everybody's voice doesn't quite match, and the comedy doesn't match. A good director usually can give you all the information you need and dial you in sound wise so that it's a perfect match for everyone else on a game or an anime series. And so directors play a huge role when it comes to those types of projects, just because they have to hold even more information than even a prelay animated director, because at least with prelay we'll get the script and we can read the entire script. When I'm in the room with everybody else, I can listen to their reads before I get to my line. There's a little bit more to go on.
So, would you ever consider doing voice directing yourself, or have you done it before by any chance?
Well, interesting you should ask that. I have a top secret directing series that I don't know when it's going to release. I am very, very excited about it. It is not a half-hour episodic, but it will be. I think it might be a big deal when it releases. So I'm very anticipatory about that. It'll be my my inauguration into voice directing. It wasn't something I pursued. It was an opportunity that came my way. And I feel very grateful to have done it, and I would love to talk about it more when it comes out.
Did you prepare in any way for the voice directing? Did you take any kind of lessons?
Oh, I took 2 months of just indulging in it. I prepared like probably nobody prepared before. I was like a keen student. I was so excited that the content was so amazing, and the talent that I knew was cast. I knew them. I know them all personally. I've worked with all of them before. I know their levels of genius. So it was a labor of love. I put so many hours into it just because I wanted to.
So you think do you think it's important that a voice director has a personal attachment to an animation or an anime or a video game?
I think it's important that a director understands acting. I think that the best directors have studied acting, even if they're not actors, but they put themselves in that side so that they can understand how a director communicates with an actor. Because my favorite directors, not all of them, but in the most part, I would say about 80% of the time, my favorite directors are actors as well. They just have this ability to communicate without having to give a line read, and that shows incredible professionalism. I'm not that, line reading has its place too. I mean, if an actor is stuck in the exact same read for a line over and over and over again, like if I keep saying a line one way and the director's tried all these different avenues to get me to change it up and I can't, it means I'm locked into something, and sometimes the only thing to get me out of it will be a line read. But there are some directors that go directly to a line read where they're like, okay, one take, no, that wasn't what I wanted, I want you to read it exactly this way, and that takes the creativity out of it. And when I'm not feeling creative with my character, my heart isn't in it anymore. I don't feel like I'm a part of the creation process anymore. So my favorite directors are people who understand that and enjoy that, taking that moment to paint the picture in such a way that they spark my imagination to give them the performance they're looking for.
So have you ever worked with a voice director that was difficult to perform for?
All the time. Yeah, that does happen. Of course. Anybody who stops the creative process, who's constantly interrupting that process, that happens a lot. People but usually it's with um people who are feel that they're under the gun, they feel rushed, they have to hurry, and they pass on that energy to the actors, and those are challenging. Those aren't fun at all. There are some times where I've been miscast, where I'm called in on a role and it wasn't what they were looking for, but they're trying to fit me into a spot that isn't me. And so that's always uncomfortable because I know I'm going to get recast. And like, well, this was a miscast. But that's usually only happens with people who don't know me and haven't worked with me. Once I've worked with somebody, usually a good director will know exactly from, even if you're doing one specific character, they know pretty much an entire range of characters they could bring you in on. In most cases, at least that's been my experience. Although you know what, I keep meeting new directors all the time and having new experiences all the time. So I don't want to limit myself to that. I think I'm open to even stranger and more challenging experiences, as I'm sure there are some out there that I just haven't had yet.
So what would you say is your favorite kind of character or stereotype that you love to be cast as by a director?
I don't. I do enjoy comedy. Comedy comes, I don't know if naturally. I don't even know if I'm particularly good at it, but I know I enjoy it the most. I like comedic characters. Characters that are wacky and silly, cartoony. I really enjoy cartoony. It doesn't matter what style it is. I think that's why I really like Candy Milo so much. She embodies all the things I enjoy playing the most, and she does them flawlessly. I really admire her work. So those are my favorite, but I'm really enjoying the challenge of playing lead characters, straight characters, dramatic characters. In Fire Emblem Awakening, I got to play Emerin, and she was a really serious character. And it was a hard recording session for me because I like to joke around, even with really, really serious characters. I like to joke around and get really silly. And it got, her storyline got quite dark, spoiler alert. And I remember cracking myself up for half the session, like trying not to break and trying not to say the funny things that were coming to my head, because there were some really funny things that were coming to my head, but it was inappropriate with this particular client. They wouldn't have been okay with the funny side of me. They only wanted to see the Emerin side of me. So I struggled through that. And then by the time we got to near the juicy parts of her storyline, I was crying. As she was crying, I was crying. I was like, wow, okay, this is intense. So that was an interesting experience. But I like that. I do like those challenging bits. I mean, obviously, we're always comfortable and we seem to be happy with the things that come easy, but it's the challenging stuff that reminds me why I love to act.
What would you say is your most challenging role that you've had yet?
I think it's this role that in this new series that hasn't been announced yet, because it's something I've never been cast as. Yeah, it's the most challenging because I'm putting the most pressure on myself for this particular part because I feel the importance of it and I don't want to blow it. So I think this might be my most challenging, and I'm really grateful for it and the opportunity to do it for as long as I get to do it.
So do you have any methods of preparation for characters that you get cast as, any techniques or research or anything, or do you not go that far?
I watch characters. I watch a lot of cartoons. I watch cartoons. I watch comedies, a lot of comedies. I'm a comedy queen. I love watching comedies because the character work in comedies are brilliant. British television, flat out, is what I watch the most of because the character work coming out of the UK is untouchable. It's brilliant. And Australia too. So anything from those two countries I'll watch because those actors are phenomenal, and I usually find that inspirational when I step into a booth. I think I'm at the point in my career where I've been acting so long that a lot of the stuff that I used to do in preparation is just something I'm constantly doing now, and I don't think about it anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm constantly working, I'm constantly in this preparation place of preparing for the next part, preparing for the next part, and but that improv feel comes into it a lot too. It's like, well, I have to be flexible, I have to be open, I have to be able to change up a character in an instant. Like I was at a job on last week where it took half an hour for them to find the character, that the voice that they wanted, which required me to put on, like, I think I did put on like 30 different characters in order to find the right one that they were looking for specifically. And to them it was on different bodies. Each one was a little bit different in attitude and in how they thought, how they felt, how they were, what they believed, all of that. So it was just like switching those attitudes, those people. I had to switch all those people. But for them, it was just switching voices, which is, I always find that funny. I'm like, no, that's not the right voice. Well, for me, it's not a voice. It's a character. It's like, okay, this is the right character.
Definitely.
Okay, let's fill out more information on this character. How do you want this character? But to them, they're like, no, we want the voice to be more. I'm like, okay. But I don't take that personally.
Kind of about the mannerisms as well, I've noticed, that really elevates a performance, really, like, adds a tinge of personality to a character, makes them stand out compared to previous performances.
I use my entire body when I'm recording everything. I use my body. Everything is used. Like, what it would look like on camera would be insane. I'd look insane if you saw what I did. If I'm not moving behind a camera, I mean behind the mic, then that's because that character's voice has to be that kind of grounded, and that's a specific choice. But most of the characters I do, I have to move my body around. I have to hold it in strange positions because in my imagination, I'm seeing that character's body. And sometimes my body isn't that body, but I can put it in a position that reminds me of that body in my imagination, and the voice will be perfect once I get there.
So when you're pretty much performing in front of the microphone and you're doing all these gestures, all these movements, all the expressions, did you ever notice that the animators are trying to imitate or recreate these kinds of things?
It looks insane. The character wouldn't do that. No. It would be crazy. No. It's almost like my body is like a conductor, the way a conductor does for an entire orchestra. My body is conducting the entire orchestra that is coming out of the character. So sometimes the movements aren't appropriate for what the animation would be, but the movements are what gets my voice to do what it needs to do, because in real life that character is running through a giant forest or flying through an airplane or fighting serious things. Like I have to get my body in a position to imagine that it's doing those things, and I have to do it instantly in the moment. I don't have the time and luxury to run around a lap 20 miles to get that feeling of this is authentically me exhausted and fighting in a giant battle. I have to do it immediately, so my body compensates by doing strange movements to get me there faster.
Yeah, well, you've just mentioned how your performance is like conducting an orchestra, and I remember that Mel Blanc would often treat his performances like he is almost singing.
Yeah.
Like his delivery will be based on music. Would you say that sometimes music influences your performances?
I wouldn't say that because it's not conscious. It's not a conscious thing for me, but I think sound does. I think sound is a major part of my life, because I don't consider myself a musical person. However, I can't disagree with that statement in any way, shape, or form. I could totally see how it could be interpreted as musical. Of course, the conducting and the rhythms and the pacing and the timing and all of, I can, that resonates to a degree for sure. If I didn't think myself so unmusical, I'd probably, use that more.
Well, yeah, the performance could have been a bit stilted because, like, there wouldn't be a rhythm, there'd be a constant monotone, a bit like Daria.
That's true, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Adds personality. Now, what kind of impressions can you do? Can you do any impressions by
I
any chance?
can. I don't really do them. I you know, as a voice actor, we are able to, you know, do our voice this way, that way, the other way. Um, I don't really do them anymore. I used to do them when I was younger and I didn't work so much, but now I don't know. I haven't been excited about doing impressions in a long time. Yeah, the only one that people any ask me to do anymore is my Drew Barrymore. That's the only one that I've done recently.
Can you give an example of your Drew Barrymore
Well, it's when she
impression?
was younger now, because she's older now. Her voice has changed a little bit, but it was more like, "Hello, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate all of you. Thank you."
That's spot on.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, you've like I said, the mannerisms are important. You've managed to imitate
Yeah.
that. So, have you ever like played a character that I mean, like, have you stepped into a character that's been played by someone else
hmm
before? Do you try to match the voice of the previous performer?
No,
You
I'm
don't.
not a
All
big
right.
fan of the voice matching part aspect of stuff. I don't. I like if, for example, if I'm offered a like I'm the second Chie for the Persona 4 series, and they didn't ask me to match Tracy's performance. They let me do something completely original. Which is good because I'm not interested in matching. So I mean, I can do all my friends' voices. They can do all of my voices. It's not about matching voices. I really dislike those jobs
Mm,
because I can't be somebody else. You know, their soul is that essence of who they are. You know, nobody can be Tom Kenny. You know, what he brings to SpongeBob
absolutely.
and his sense of humor and his beingness that he brings, that acting ability through from his center, you may be able to do SpongeBob's voice, but you will never be SpongeBob because you are not Tom Kenny, which is why I have a hard time. I do not watch the new Looney Tunes stuff because the soul of Mel Blanc is not present, even though that the sound is present, the soul isn't there, and I feel that it doesn't resonate for me. So I don't enjoy doing that as a job. I have done it for television and film when a celebrity isn't able to come in and do their pickups. You know, I've voice matched them just to a camera just so that they could get through the scene. But I generally don't take work if it's animated to match somebody that I know to do their voice. I'm not. I think we have to support each other in the universe of voice acting. Who knows why they, you know, unless somebody died, unless the voice actor died,
Mm.
then I might consider doing that job. But if they're still alive and they, you know, are getting recast because of money issues, well, I'm not going to be the actor who takes their job. You know, I'm not going to even try that because I think the fans know. The fans know when their favorite voices are
Mm.
replaced, even though it's a perfect match. It's just like, you can't make a career of copying other people's work.
That's the thing, though, is that a lot of people insinuate that voice acting is essentially the voice when it's more. There is a soul to it, there is a character to it, and there are things you have to develop within that character.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you like I asked before, your parents were a bit unsure about your voice acting career, but how do your like friends feel, or how do strangers feel when you reveal your career to them? How do
That's
they
funny because I
react?
never usually do to strangers. Usually what happens is they'll say like, they'll call me you're like a cartoon or you're very animated and then I'll be like, oh, that explains what I do for a living. uh that usually is how that happens with friends. Well, all the friends that I grew up with in Canada, they had it the worst because that was before I was working in voiceover. So I was constantly doing characters obnoxiously in their face for years, not knowing that the voice acting was a job. I didn't know it was a job. I just knew that the theater and the TV stuff that I was doing wasn't satisfying that part of myself. So I had to release that onto my poor friends. I remember one guy named Mark. Mark and Tim, we would go for walks, and that whole walk, all I would do would be all of my voices. And they would just sit there and they would listen. Not sit there, they'd be walking and they would listen the whole time as I released all of this pent up character stuff that had been sitting in me, and I just needed some to bounce it off of somebody's ear, because I did it at home when nobody was around too, but I just needed to know, is this accurate, does this sound good, that type of stuff. So those are the people that I value the most, that had the patience to do that with me. Now, of course, the friends that I have now are all in the industry. They're pretty much, in the entertainment one way or the other. And they are very supportive. I surround myself with people that are incredibly supportive. If somebody's not supportive, then they're not in my universe, and as I wouldn't want anybody, in their universe that wasn't supportive of them 100%.
So how do you feel about your friends' criticism of your work? Do you does it help you improve?
I don't know, probably. I'm not sure. Because it's not like I have a measuring stick. I think the hours and 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 hours of all the crap that I did, all of it has improved me. I think constantly working, I keep also improving. I think I'm always improving and changing and adjusting and becoming a better artist and learning how to listen better and learning how to work my instrument better. I don't think that is ever going to stop.
Absolutely, because there's no way you're going to reach the level of action. Because if you had that kind of if you had that kind of mindset, then you would never go to another level.
Exactly.
You'd be stuck in that same place.
Yeah, and even for myself, I've constantly had to shift my attitude. That's just being a human, though. I'm always trying to shift my attitude to accept more in my universe, so that I'm able to limit myself less, because the only limitations in my world are the ones I put upon myself, and I seem to put a lot on me, and I'm trying to remove them one at a time. As I discover them, I'm trying to remove them, but that's a slow going process, because you have to be really honest with yourself to reveal each limitation.
Definitely, I think we're all our own critic.
Yeah, that's very true.
Now, what do you usually say to those people that denounce voice acting and say that it's not real acting?
That means that they don't know anything about acting. I don't even have to.
Absolutely.
They don't bother me, because it's like, oh, that would be like me saying, being a doctor is stupid because I didn't. You know what I mean? Like, just because I think that homeopathy is the way to go, but knowing nothing of either. You don't know. It's okay. You can debunk it. You don't know.
So how would you compare voice acting to live action acting, since you've experienced both?
Completely different style, where it's the opposite. Because live action, you don't move at all. Everything is internal. Because you have everything in front of you. You don't have to imagine it. So everything you're doing is coming from inside. So it's not you're not pulling it from inside to out. Everything is kind of being from outside in. It's the opposite for me anyway, when I'm doing on camera, and it's so much smaller. Everything is minute. The minutest move, the minutest breath, the eye movement. It's a completely different style. And you also are limited by your physical appearance. You can only play the characters that look like you. I can't be a 90-year-old woman looking the way I look. I can't be a 20-year-old woman anymore looking the way I look. But I don't have those limitations in voiceover.
Now, you've worked in live action before, like you've said. So how do you feel about live action acting?
I'm not comfortable with live action acting. I've done it. I have even done it for friends. I'm not it's not natural for me. I find it I don't, for me, and this is not a judgment on live action actors. Obviously I watch a smoke load of television and movies, and I admire the people that have mastered that craft, because it is a craft and it is a whole different style. And the people that do that well, I firsthand understand the difficulty of pulling that off brilliantly. I don't think I'm particularly great at it. I think I'm okay, but I'm not great at it. And I think I'm not great at it because I'm not comfortable with it. It would take a long time and probably many more hours than I ended up putting in for me to become more comfortable with it. But there are a lot of live action actors that would say the exact same thing about voiceover, that they just, as being in a booth with a microphone and having to do all of it, they just wouldn't be comfortable with it. And you can tell from their performance, that reads.
Now you play May and Naz in the cult animated series Ed, Edd and Eddy. I absolutely love it. I love how bizarre it is. To me, it's like a coked up version of the Charlie Brown cartoons.
That is awesome.
It really does appeal to me, and it's the logic, it's the universe, it's the animation, it's insane. Now, considering how strange it is and how over the top it can be, has there ever been a scene or a line that you felt a bit like, what? No. Has it ever confused you? So you've managed to settle into this universe.
No, there was nothing about that show that I didn't think was genius. It was a genius show. Danny Antonucci he's a genius. I mean, I was a fan of his from the Sick and Twisted Animation Festival. I watched his Lupo the Butcher cartoons, and I was like, oh my God, who is this dude? And then to be hired on his, I watched every single line was hilarious to me. It was absurd. It was crazy. I really enjoyed it.
So what is it about the characters of May and Naz that what do you think of them?
Cast as Naz. Naz was Tabitha St. Germain, but she was doing so many projects at that time. She was doing she did Little Voice in the huge theater in Vancouver at that time, which she could do. She nailed it. She was amazing. So Naz didn't really talk that much, so she gave up the job because she would, for her schedule of how much she was doing, this one job just to come in to do a snort or a giggle, she just was like, okay, you know what, forget about it. So she went on to her all the other projects she was doing. So that was a gift for me to get to pick up Naz. But May Canker, I spent 6 months auditioning for her. It was a whole 6-month process, and I love her. I love her catch-up and her loving Ed, and I love how she's kind of like the underdog of the two sisters kind of pick on her. I think that May could have fit in with the rest of the cul-de-sac if her sisters weren't around. I feel like if she had just had the right influence, May could have been, Ed's girlfriend in a different time and place. That's not fantasy. I love May, and I love that they were both blonde. And it was funny, by the end of the series, I didn't notice it about myself, but my haircut ended up being exactly Naz's haircut. Somebody came in to shoot some extra footage for a DVD and made that comment, and I went, oh my God. And my clothes, I was dressing into baggy skater pants and loose tee. I looked like Naz by the end of the series. I had morphed physically into her. I thought that was an interesting side effect.
So do you end up becoming attached to the characters of May and Naz then?
I am. I think that is mostly because it was my first job ever. And it was with such an iconic animator. And I don't think any other job is going to affect me as deeply as that job did, because it was such a big deal in my universe.
Now, I've actually heard a really interesting theory about Ed, Edd and Eddy, and I'd like to know what you think of it. Someone made up this theory that perhaps the world is set in purgatory. Yeah. All these children have died. Yeah. Can you see that?
I did. I loved that. In fact, it was Danny Antonucci who had reposted it on Facebook, so that's how I saw it. And I just thought that was genius. I'm like, oh my God, that's genius, because everything they came up with worked. It was like, oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. That's a great theory. Why not? Very creative.
Now, seeing as how Ed and Eddy was like a staple mark of 90s cartoons, how do you feel about cartoons of nowadays, like the 2000s. How would you compare them both?
I don't know. Like, I'm finally, now that Netflix has picked up all of the Cartoon Network stuff, I'm really happy. So I'm getting to watch some shows that I haven't gotten to really enjoy. Like, I love Chowder right now, and I'm just really getting into Chowder. I never saw Chowder, so I really like Chowder. I was really into the cartoons of my, Ed, and Eddy generation. I like cartoony cartoons. Like, I still love SpongeBob SquarePants. I think that's a genius cartoon, and I enjoy watching it. I'm not into, personally, it's just a flavor thing. It's not a judgment on it being a good or bad cartoon. The adult themed cartoons, I don't really enjoy those as much. I think because of my years being brought up on Hanna-Barbera and Looney Tunes, I like the cartoons that kind of sneak the adult content within the child's content so that it's not hit over the head or gross or creepy or anything like that, where it's just like, oh, aren't you clever, mommy? You got the little joke that we slipped in just for you. I like that sort of thing more than else.
Do you think that any of the shows that are around today have recaptured the energy and strange logic of Ed, and Eddy?
Well, I think Ed, and Eddy is unique to itself. I don't even know how to explain it, because it's just one of those things that is just unique. It's just unique. Like, like Powerpuff Girls, which I loved. I totally adored watching that cartoon. I loved it. It was so much fun. But it was kind of, it was based on like old 1940s, 50s. It had, you could see what it was influenced on. You can see where the stories and the theme and the flavor came from. And Ed, and Eddy was a thing all its own. So I don't think anyone's going to recreate it, or I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe some huge Ed, and Eddy fan will become an animator and there will be something that reminds us of it. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'm an animation student, and so my class always brings up things like Cartoon Network shows like Ed, and Eddy and the Powerpuff Girls, and like we remark on how they have influenced us. They have definitely inspired us subconsciously. Like, when you look at our work, you'll notice that we're not imitating those kind of shows,
right, that's
but they've got the essence, they've got the vibe, they've got the passion.
Didn't copy anything; it was unique unto itself. But you could feel the essence of all of the things that animator was influenced by, which was like an homage, right? It's a beautiful homage to the people who opened the doors before. So I'm hoping to see the generation of. Because you're all adults now. I mean, I meet a lot of 19, 20-year-olds that were brought up on Ed, and Eddy getting into animation, and I want to see those shows.
Well, Erin, thank you for taking the time to chat to me.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been really fun.
I hope that my listeners enjoyed listening to my podcast interview with Erin. I believe personally that she's a friendly, open-minded, and very talented woman. I encourage you to go and check out her work. You can tweet her on Twitter as well if you have a specific question that I didn't ask in this interview. You can also go on her official website, which is erinfitzvo.com, or you can check out her Facebook page. Feel free to subscribe to my channel because I will continue to interview celebrities for your entertainment. See you guys!